beautiful the streams coming right from the top. It's totally filled with the plastic waste. And I was just looking at it, I said, well, this is it. We don't need nukes to destroy the world. We don't need majority of missiles. No, we are already into it. We will destroy the mother by ourselves. We don't need it. We don't need evils or devils to destroy our mother. We humans are doing it. So uh, I think sometimes people just, they say you're stupid, why are you doing all these things? Let it go on. I said, this is not about me. This is not about you. I'm around 50 plus now. I lived my life. But what are you leaving for the future generation? I mean, they deserve, like I have lived my life. I deserve these beautiful mountains, number of places. What about the future generation? And the worst part is this, the Kashmir. We have got the economy of Kashmir depend on 50-50 agriculture, horticulture, then tourism. And people from a different parts of the world, across the nation, people come from different places. They just want to come enjoy this beautiful place, and they will only come as long as this place is clean enough. There are streams, springs, natural springs, a beautiful mountains are still. But in coming days, when you don't have anything, why would they come here? There's nothing, they can go somewhere else. So before it's too late, we are trying our best to highlight the issues related to the environment and stuff like that. Hopefully people will understand. And you know the most you can do is a try. You can try, that's it. You can't just take law into your own hands, so that's it. Thank you very much, Alex. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sahil, and you clearly get it by our Climate Crisis Club ideas. You clearly get it. I don't know what all that plastic is doing way up there in the mountains. The tears in your eyes, they're polluting this world. And one thing you said is the media might not be doing a very good job on reporting on this pollution and destruction of the environment, but it's private parties that are noticing, and we are private parties. We use this platform here, these social medias. I see Sandy there with her environmental coffee house. She does her live show on YouTube. I think of Andrea doing her no show. We're all private parties. We're just doing the reporting ourselves because the news media just isn't doing the reporting. And India is an important piece of this entire puzzle. The 1.4 billion people, the world's largest democracy. Pakistan is a power player. That part of the world is critical. I was just listening to the Native American space, Eugene and Lost Sioux, and there was an English gentleman on there who just did not get anything. He was in the UK and just did not understand what our native pals were saying. The lack of communication, the lack of understanding, the lack of ability. I have never been to Asia. I've seen Asia from a Greek island. I've seen the coastline of Asia with my eyes, but I haven't been there. How am I supposed to understand what's going on in India? I've been to, starting in 1981, I was going to Indian restaurants on 6th Street in New York City, and so forth. Back long ago, I've talked to many. My parents' friend was Ved Mehta, was a writer for the New Yorker from India, a very well-known author in the 70s. I remember Ved. So since I was a little boy, I've been talking about India. I've seen Indian movies, Satya Ray and so forth. But again, I've never been to India, so how can I speak about India? Listening to this English guy just mangling Native American affairs a little while ago, I don't know how Lost Sioux and Eugene were able to keep their cool. So with all that said, I'm very eager to hear from Pup and his coffee and his bear and northern Minnesota and his life and what's going on in his Bolt. the mighty white bolt. Um, how are you, Pop?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the Bolt. And so the reason I raised my hand is there's two scraps of news. And I really don't know whether to classify these as good news or bad news. So the first one, which for me is mostly good news, is 3 days ago, GM and Tesla. Tesla opened up 17,800 DC fast charging stations to GM vehicles. The Bolt being a GM vehicle, that just, oh my God, I now can drive the Bolt to visit my friend in Denver, Colorado. I got to stop a couple of times, but I can do it. And most of you probably don't know, but the Bolt is not known for its long range capabilities. It's it's got a decent amount of range, but it's not horrendously good. But I've actually plotted a route to my best friend in Denver, Colorado, and I can do it exclusively using the Tesla superchargers. The other thing that's of note, if you're going to do that, is for $13 a month, you can become they call it the non-Tesla membership program, and it drops your electrical costs from 48 or 49 cents a kilowatt hour, which I think is absolutely criminal, down to 34 to 36 cents a kilowatt hour, which is only double what I pay at home. But hey, I'm out on the road, so no, I can top off the Bolt from 17% to 100% for, I don't know, $10.90. And get 250 miles worth of range out of it. That's pretty fucking sexy. And that's a really ridiculously low cost per mile compared to a gas car. Anyway, the other piece of news, and again, I'm not quite sure. And by the way, I posted links to both of these up in the Jumbotron, so you can go read about it. But the other piece of news, and I'm not sure whether this is good news or bad news, so I'll just put it out there. Microsoft, who runs one of the largest AI cloud and is a cloud provider, the Azure cloud, just bought 3 Mile Island with the intent of reopening, because 3 Mile Island's been, nuclear plants have been shut down for years. The idea is they're going to buy it, or they have bought it. They're going to refurb it and fire it back up, exclusively to power a new AI based data center. My mind is boggled. Amazon, I believe it was Amazon, or was it Meta? They did that. They bought a nuclear power plant with the idea that they're going to build an operating plant that they're going to build a data center next to. This, I've got a whole bunch of questions about this, not from a nuclear power standpoint, but from a, oh my God, where these data companies are needing, gigawatt size generation facilities, to run their AI models. This is, I don't know. I'm a little scared about this. Anyway, I just two scraps of news. So, and there I'll get off my horse, go drink my coffee.
Yeah, awesome coffee, Pop.
Can I add something?
I don't see why not, man. Why not?
Yeah. Hi everyone.
Hey.
Pup, they're doing this they will be about to announce this for, I'm pretty certain it's going to happen, for Port Talbot Steelworks.
Hello.
For the Port Talbot Steelworks in South Wales. Because this is the idea that has been put forward, is your exact
Hello.
SMR. No, not now. Wait a minute, please. They want to build an SMR and power a green steel plant at Tartar's Steelworks in South Wales. That is partly, not completely, but it has been in the thinking. While last week they closed off the Cumbrian coal mine, which was going to provide the particular type of coal that would have been fueling this steelworks had it been, a conventional steelworks. So they're actually going with the SMR route. I'm pretty sure they are. It's been put forward by various wonks in the Labour Party think tanks, and they are very likely to actually do this now. So that's the same idea. I think it's for obviously a better purpose, but I'm not saying exclusively it is. I think the idea of AI producing that, having to be that big a vampire energy user is a bit daft myself, but that's my own personal thinking. I think it takes away from human ingenuity and human thinking and free will, but there you go. And then who the hell's going to run it anyway, Pup? Who's going to run this power station? Microsoft?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you know, so what? First question, Oliver. Who's SMR? What company is building the SMR?
No, it's still in the air, but it's been put about by one of Labour's think tanks who are really pushing it hard.
Can
I
you
wish I
talk?
could remember the name.
Hello.
Well, you
I'm
have to
from
wait.
Gaza.
Yeah, I know you are, but you've got to wait. I'm allowed to jump in like that because it was relevant to the
Hello.
question.
Raise your hand, mute your mic.
Good times.
So I don't know what company is producing this SMR, but it's still at the theoretical stage. But they want to do it. It's the Tartar definitely are going to do this type of steelworks and or steel making, and so it's just a question of time before they actually do it. And it'll be a. I'm sure they're doing it elsewhere. They must be doing it elsewhere. It's such a sensible thing to do. I don't think quite the same about what size power station they're going to build at 3 Mile Island. A proper old-fashioned conventional one. My God, or just SMRs there.
No, they're going to boot up the old one, get it fired up again. The one that blew up.
Well, if they were going to build a conventional power station, nuclear power station to run your foundry, then my God, that's eight years out. I mean, just from a construction standpoint. So SMRs, you build them in factories, and you can roll them out. Typically, though, SMRs are not gigawatt size by definition, small modular reactor. They're typically in the 1 to 10 megawatt range. So, to run a foundry, those things suck power like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Raise your hand and mute your mic. Behave like the rest of the people in the room. Be courteous. Don't be a jerk.
I must say that Julian and I were just in the Native American space with Law Sue and Eugene, and they had an obnoxious guy, and they were awfully polite to him. We're a little different here, I can see.
I think it's when you're on topic, you get the feel for it, and you want to talk about it, and then somebody cutting across it. It drives away the concentration or whatever,
Law
Yeah, sorry about that. I would have jumped in, but I couldn't see who it was that was talking and interrupting.
Yeah, Law Sue was infinitely patient with this guy from England who was incredibly rude. I would have blocked him, an hour before. And Law Sue was just incredibly patient. So I'm glad this is our way here. I'm much more comfortable with this. Better to make a mistake and be sorry later than listen to some trolling. Good.
Yeah.
Getting back to the nuclear thing, one of the things that scares me about this Microsoft buying a nuclear power plant. I have lots of friends. I mean, it's the world I lived in during my working career. Microsoft and their Azure cloud is just riddled with bugs. I
Right.
mean,
Pup, let's clarify a few things. It would be Constellation Energy that'll be restarting the power plant. Microsoft wouldn't own it. They would only buy the energy. And it's reactor number 1 they would start up. That's the plan.
yeah, well, okay, Constellation Energy. I'm not a big fan. Okay, not a big fan.
Well, who is? Do you know anybody who is? I mean, who is?
Well, again, let's briefly revisit why they shut down 3 Mile Island. Okay, they
Yeah.
weren't doing the maintenance on pump seals on their makeup water pumps. They had a situation where they started to uncover the core, which is like, oh my God, you never allow that to happen kind of thing. And they fired up these make water pumps that had bad seals on them because they weren't doing the fucking maintenance on the equipment because it was a cost cutting kind of diversion thing. Oh, we'll do that next week. We'll schedule that next week. There's nothing wrong. The next thing to remember here is, that design of that conventional generation facility is every bit of 60 or 70 fucking years old. And one could say, well, it's proven technology. The other side of the coin is, oh my God, if you've ever seen one of these control rooms, there's no solid state devices in there. It's all freaking gauges and lights, and it's just inaccurate controls is what I'm trying to get at. And they're going to fire it up and run it. Are they going to upgrade it? Are they just going to refuel it and turn it back on? I mean, no. I'm not a big fan. The next thing is that crosses my mind. I was mining Bitcoin, and they use a lot of goddamn power, and there was a big outrage. Bitcoin miners are, they're using more power than some cities. And initially that was true, and it was all coal-fired power and fossil fuel-fired power. But now, there is such a boon with this AI thing that, it's now going to draw more electricity than all the Bitcoin miners on the planet. This just turns on a bright red light sitting above my head. I mean, like red flare guns going off. Like, is this really a good idea? Again, I strongly counsel, if you don't know anything about, AI, go watch Sam Harris's 15-minute presentation on TED. And if you don't come away from that shaking in your boots, there's something wrong with you. Anyway, what the fuck are they thinking?
Val was very good on Doc Val, we miss her, was very good on AI. She was involved in it. I mean, it makes sense that she would be involved in it because she was, a neuroscientist. But she said that basically it isn't what people think. Not at all. This AI thing, it's constantly breaking down as well. The AI, they get it going and they get it moving, and then it has a kind of nervous breakdown. So don't believe everything you hear. That came up yesterday in the Elders, by the way, as well. Quite interesting. They had a whole section on it. I don't know if anybody else watched the Elders. I like the Elders. I like these old people, They're very, very wise.
That's us, man.
Well,
Yeah.
The other thing in my working career, I wrote AI code for Wall Street banks, most notably in their trading, equities and commodities trading stuff. One of the things I want to throw out here is, everybody's using AI to do artwork and music and all these creative things. You know what you have to do to get an AI to do that is you have to get it to hallucinate. I mean, really.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You let it go crazy, and then it comes up with some really, really interesting, kind of beautiful shit. But the point I'm driving at here is we now have AIs that we are purposefully sending down the hallucination path. Is this something you want, monitoring your financials? Is this something you want, to predict who's going to win the next election or create the commercials for that? Or you see where I'm going with this? This is not a good thing. And the other thing is once you train an AI to do a particular vertical task, you don't know how it got to where it is, and you don't know how it's coming up with those solutions. You can't pop the hood and look underneath. You don't know how it's doing it. And you don't know what its quote thought processes are. And that is fucking scary as shit. I mean, we have psychologists that if you come in with, some mental illness that's identified in the DSM-4 or 5, whatever the fuck the current one is, they can diagnose you and maybe, set you down a path to, get you thinking straight or eliminate the disease. But you can't do that with an AI model. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Pretty good, Pop. Pretty good. We do have Dr. Gidley join the club yesterday, a PhD in climate psychology. So she might be able to help you out with some of these issues. Let's hear from cyberspace. Being human. Hi, cyberspace. What part of the world are you in? Hi.
Hi, how you going? Good. I was Frog the other day, so you might remember me as Frog.
Oh, Frog, my friend. Yes, you had terrific stuff. We were in Perth. These guys will really enjoy from hearing from you. Go ahead.
Well, it was a lot to cover. Just in those moments of listening to these people speaking, it's a pleasure to be here. So basically, unfortunately, AI. The problem with AI in the way that it's done at this particular point is that it overshoots. So it gets to a certain point, and this is a thing that's happened time and time again over the last 50 years of about 50 years of doing AI, and so what they're actually doing is they're trying to train it with large language models, but the problem is it's so vast that the AI only knows what to do with whatever you ask it to understand. So that's the key. The key is whatever you want it to answer, it will answer as best it can or make shit up. And it doesn't matter whether it's images, sound, video, like across the board. And that's the same with financial financial transactions and financial sort of assistance or any other kind of model based on those things. Generalized AI, which is still a long way off yet, is going to do the same basically, unless there are built-in regulations. And unfortunately, we don't have regulations. We have, again, with the tech industry, one of the biggest problems is self-regulation. They just do not know when to stop or when to take a step backwards and build in appropriate limits. So there is a couple of guys who are in just sort of finishing their PhDs and stuff who are now building what you would term as little systems. So instead of having one complete large language module, which you then add things to in order to sort of allow it to do extra things, it will be a more modular kind of process-driven AI, which will have feedback and loops to better stabilize the system, which is what I can sort of come from that perspective of understanding AI. But there are plenty of other AI models that have been tried. This just happens to be the one that works with the current technology. So there's still a lot to be done in the space, and I think that this is actually going to take longer than many of these people think, because they're running away with the idea that the current AI systems are just increasing exponentially and, of course, taking up that much power. Having Microsoft pushing the requirements of power and any of the other tech giants, to be honest, in some kind of financial what's the word I'm looking for? Just having the financial finger on the button is not a good idea. It needs to be regulated. It needs to be done by the governments, and those governments also need to have checks and balances in terms of overstepping the parameters of what's needed versus what should be delivered. We do need to step backwards in terms of power. And I do know that, the reason they need that power is because they're ramping up the number of GPUs that they require is absolutely significant, and it's as if not more power hungry than crypto.
Let's connect a few dots here.
Yep.
We're concerned with the burning of fossil fuels and the making of carbon dioxide on the other end, right?
Yep.
So we all want our computers, we all want our internet, we all want our data and AI, but at the same time, we want to reduce the CO2. So there's got to be some kind of limitation on the amount of fossil fuels we burn to provide AI.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right.
And so, I do recognize that the small reactors are a way to go, and I did quickly look and see the British ones being made by Rolls-Royce, I think, at this point, or at least
we also know that nuclear isn't going to provide like 50% of the world's electricity needs in the long run. That's not happening. Not anytime soon. It takes so slow to come online. So we know the explosion in solar and wind. We know that hydro is pretty much maxed out at this point. So it's an increase in solar and wind. As we wait for the distant future, we know there's literally an infinite amount of energy pouring in from the sun that, hundreds of years down the line, people should be able to harness.
And multi-layered solar is possible, because we know that obviously it does leak through, and you only get sort of a very small amount back, considering
Right. In our discussions here, as a matter of fact, Cyber Frog, we get to the point. Michael Mann says we have 85% of the technology we need. Pup here always says we have 100%. It's usually, it gets down to socio-political. Like everybody in the space is already on the same page. So then we're just chatting to ourselves again, wondering how we're going to tell the other people that they got to wake up and realize that there's too many plastics, the air is polluted, the rainforest is dead, the manatees and the whales are dead. Again, we all
So-
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so the problem isn't the messaging. The messaging is out there and it is getting out there. The problem we have is most of the planet is basically run by boomers who don't want to give up.
Very
Who don't want to
good.
give up.
Very good.
Don't want to give
Yeah.
up their.
The
don't want to give up their
boomers in the
luxury.
USA, Frog, have 70% of America's wealth.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to get rid of capitalism. Capitalism is the sole problem.
Well, you're thinking like I think. Now we might have some disagreements in the room on that level.
Oh, of course. Of
yeah.
course, I expect that. Yeah, I expect that.
I then separated into neoliberal capitalism is just going bonkers. The greed, the selfishness, the blindness, just making money without recognizing the damage, even if they're making money legally.
Yeah.
Why don't we pop over to Pup, who you'll really enjoy? He's a unique kind of engineer in northern Minnesota. A few words, Pup. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with about 99.59% of Frog. What drives the AI boon is the almighty dollar. And governments drive that AI boon because, as Harris in his TED Talk will identify, cyberspace is the next battle space. And to be a year ahead of another nation state is to literally control that battle space. So this is why governments are not, in my humble opinion, are not regulating industry when Microsoft goes out and buys 3 Mile Island, or Meta goes out and buys a running nuclear power plant where they're going to divert the power into a data center that they're currently building. There's some geopolitics involved here. Anyway, the other thing I want to just remind the room is I currently have an ongoing project where I'm building a nuclear, for lack of better words, it's really not a battery, but a nuclear battery. There's a Chinese company that gave me the idea. They're called Betavolt, and they are currently producing a nuclear battery at 3 volts, and you measure the current output in milliwatts. But the technology is basically a solar cell that, instead of being sensitive to photons, is sensitive to beta particles. They then layer a radioisotope of tin, 1059 if memory serves correctly, next to that, and then encase it in basically a radiation shield, which just happens to be a little tin steel case. And these things have a 50-year lifespan because 1059 has got a 100-year half-life on it. Anyway, I'm currently researching and will end up building a probably somewhere between 3 to 10 kilowatt nuclear battery with the intent of mounting that on top of whatever EV happens to be sitting in the driveway. Currently, it's a Chevy Bolt. That would give me effectively unlimited range on my electric vehicle for the next 50 years. And when that vehicle wears out after 3 to 6 years of, putting an enormous, literally driving the fucking wheels off the damn thing, the idea is I want to be able to pull that generation source off of that vehicle and mount it onto the next one. But that's one of the little projects I've got going. It's probably I don't know, 2 or 3 years away from, being a viable thing. I have no, at this juncture, I have no desire to commercialize it, monetize it. This is just exclusively for my own. I'm an old retired guy and I got to keep busy doing some damn thing. Anyway, that's one of the things, but just a thought there.
Yes. Back to the
Yeah.
future stuff, pup.
Yeah, life is Back to the Future. We do need to point out that Pup was a nuclear technician on a U.S. Navy submarine.
Four of them, Alex.
Four.
Of
Many,
them.
many. Yeah.
4 submarines.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
It's worth adding, Alex, that the problem that is pretty much common sense is this: what if this AI nonsense is pulling all the energy out of the renewables? Then somebody in the AI workshop or whatever they call it makes a phone call to Exxon or whoever, and they then supply them with the energy. It just keeps the whole fossil fuel nonsense on the road. That's the trouble about it, really. That's why you need this government, legislation to keep it in order, because it'll just let the whole fossil fuel industry, it'll give them another go. They'll be licking their lips and rubbing their hands. They'll be ready for this. They'll be loving it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I am a dad, Oliver. I'm well versed. So is Pop. Well versed in that kind of behavior. The small children,
Yes.
They, I also want to point out, Ollie, that Seagull has joined us from Cyprus. We haven't had any input here in our 95 weeks from Cyprus, a beautiful island in the Mediterranean. And we have Dr. Jim, PhD in physics. So often Jim has really interesting insights into food, agriculture, farming, biochemistry. I'm not sure, Jim, if that's really your main focus, but you certainly have great insights into that department.
Yeah, I just wanted to make some comments on AI. To me, there's kind of two worlds, and the AI that the large language models, the Chat GPT, and all of a sudden it's burst on the scene in the past couple of years. I chatted with Doc Valerie about this, and I think we're pretty much aligned in the view that this is all stupid AI tricks and possibly dangerous and sucking down huge amounts of energy for a slightly better search engine, or really stupid AI tricks, like tell it create a raccoon head on a turtle body, and voila, you've got this image. What's the point of drawing down huge amount of energy for just stupid stuff? But having said that, to me, there is machine learning, which underlies much of this AI, but there is machine learning of the type that emerged around 2006 or so, and I was into it in the 10-year ago time frame, and the machine learning neural nets that are trained focusing on a very, very specific problem. They're not trying to do large language models. These are so valuable for getting a handle on complexity. It's a new tool for understanding complexity, and when you understand where these machine learning models are coming from, it's pretty mundane. Anybody that's done data analysis has has fit a straight line to data. And anybody, that's univariate regression, and anybody who's done multivariate regression is real comfortable with the idea of fitting a multi-dimensional hyperplane to data points. So what? That's we kind of live on that kind of data analysis, and fitting basically fit a linear regression model. Then neural nets comes along and offers this new tool that leaps ahead of that simple fitting a plane to data. You can train it with huge amounts of data, and like Pup said, the model it creates is incomprehensible. It's so the mathematics is so complex. However, there are best of practices procedures for ensuring that it's doing a good job of generalizing to data it's never seen before, and you can attach numbers to that. So anyway, it's a new tool that we have for basically representing data and capturing complex relationships that the human mind just was not able to see them before. And no matter what the complex system we're talking about, whether it's trying to make progress in agriculture and many other fields, circa 2014 machine learning is really, really valuable. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, one of the to piggyback on what Jim said, an example of that narrow neural net is the one that they're using to detect breast cancer. They fed it an enormous amount of slides, and it is now predicting with a 98% accuracy patients that are going to develop breast cancer, where a team of radiologists look at these and go, you're good to go, have at it. And the AI model is going, no, you really should pay attention to this, because that's gonna be really fucked up in about a year. That's gonna metastasize, and rotten shit's gonna happen to you. That's just an example. Another example in the financial community, the Mercer organization and Renaissance Capital in particular, even during the 2008 financial crisis, was posting gains, because Mercer got its start in natural language processing at IBM, departed there after a number of years, and started a hedge fund that, internally to the hedge fund corporation, you have to be a member of the corp. But these guys are making money. Oh my God, hand over fist, using AI to, do everything from stock trades to commodity trades. Anyway, unfortunately, the Mercers are one of the people that back Trump. So there's some danger here. Anyway, I'll get off my horse again.
Alex, would it be useful for people to know my sort of background?
Yes, it would. Let me just say a few words, because we've been very technical here, and on the AI, machine learning, computer science kind of talk, and let's bring it back to the real world, to our real human lives. That these machines are part of our life now and part of our life going forward. The cell phones, the computers, the internet, the social media, we're all going to be living with this, our kids and grandkids and so forth. this is the way the future is going to be. Certainly in the 70s, when I was a kid, we didn't know that these high-powered supercomputers were how the future was going to turn out. We're not flying to Mars and Jupiter. We don't have flying cars, but we do have these superpowered computers. So we've been discussing some of the bare bones of how they work, the thinking behind these systems like AI, which in itself is fascinating, but I'm not sure it's completely universal. We are a club. This is our 95th week, and we are here to discuss environmental problems, global environmental crises, including the plastics crisis, the soil crisis, and the biodiversity crisis. We've gone through climate change, climate crisis, climate science extensively, and we've come up with quite a lot of results in our 95 weeks, especially on the psychological side, organizational of human side, how to have an international conference, how to have a meeting, a space, how to have a talk. What are the rules of etiquette? What is respect? Well, I think we've made terrific progress on those fronts. People from 6 continents, dozens of nations, different religions, ethnic groups. I learned today that anthropologists consider that there are 15,000 cultures in the world. They break down the entire human race into 15,000 cultures. So us of the 15,000 cultures, how are we supposed to communicate? Ollie and I, Kim, Pop, others, Jim, we're working on trust and friendship. I'm half Greek. I'm naturally kind of friendly. And to me, philosophy, philos means friend. And that's where this all starts. So yeah, Frog, that's my little host, reboot, reorganizing, setting the room speech. So yeah, you are in Perth and you're a photographer and computer science polymath kind of guy. And I think I think this group will enjoy what you have to say there, Frog. So go ahead by all means.
Yeah, so I thought it just might give some context because I think I cross some of the things that are being said. So basically, I did computer science and cybernetics in the UK. That was my field of education. And then I stuck with IT for a long time, for everything from small desktop stuff to servers and things. So and then due to an actual personal breakdown, if you like, I basically switched to something that I'd always loved doing, and so I went with photography, which I've been doing since I was a child, and I became a visual artist. So and they sort of cross over in many ways. So I understand, having done cybernetics, I understand feedback systems, AI, neural nets, parallel systems like communications, like let me think, audio, video. Yeah, there's just so many. I can't even remember them all, to be honest. But that was the idea, but it's always about trying to find ways to make changes to a system to make it more structurally sound, whether it be biological, electrical, engineering, just anything that you can throw at it as a system, politics. And basically that gives me a really good understanding from an overall perspective of how to analyze systems and make suggestions. So that's that sort of leads into my art as well and my photography. So I think what we do have a problem with, and moving forward from a perspective of climate, there are a lot of steps that need to be considered leading up to that, which is, climate is a system. The planet is a system, as we know, and you can't resolve climate without resolving one, like you said, communication, two, structures of how we best move forward, whether it be political and or economic, because a system-based or a resource-based system that is not in the hands of entrepreneurs and CEOs is ultimately the way that we have to go. And when we've got things like crypto and capitalist societies or any other kind of isms, they need to merge. They need to merge into a more system-based approach, because as we get more and more technologically advanced, more and more jobs are going to become redundant. The ones that can't are basically human-related ones, like the medical systems and things like that. We still need people for caring and those sorts of things. But when it comes to economics and politics, socio-economic systems, we have to change, because we can't keep using the same amount of power without finding, like Pop said, without having batteries, because we know that we can generate the resources from the natural environment, including the sun. But the problem is holding on to it for long enough for it to be used 24/7 is the biggest problem. And they're starting to look at that here in Australia with the transmission of power. But there's still so much to be done, whether it be nuclear or natural resources being utilized. And there are plenty more to go. We've got sea ones, we've got rain ones, for environments that don't get sun. Like, there's just so many new ways and so many new materials coming to the fore. Like, there's going to be a huge increase in nanotubing and all those kinds of technologies, which the UK is actually doing quite a bit of research in that and providing the new I've forgotten the word now, but very dense carbon systems and for transmission and all kinds of new structures. So that's kind of a basic of where I'm at. So,
yeah. I'm thinking how, again, Dr. Mann always says we have 85% of the science and technology we need. And for those in the STEM community, in science and tech, this is all scary for everyone. If you're not a certain kind of neurodiversity, you feel fear. This is Godzilla. This is the comet coming at us. This is all that. There's no denial of that. That environmental crisis, climate crisis is scary. And for those that are heavily in the STEM sector, science and technology, their work is kind of done. There's not too much more. We can't just strictly only engineer our way out of this. That is man's point in the new climate war. We need politics. We need legislation. We need social culture expression to the masses, to the general public. That side is much there's much more work to be done. And there's no getting around that. So I do feel for everyone who is in science and technology who feels the urgent need to do something. And we don't need to make more data centers. We don't need more and more and more science and tech. We have enough. So I can sense that frustration. We literally need conversations like this. We need people with words and people with images and people with movie cameras and people talking. And we complain constantly about the press. We need video. We need to communicate to the people. And then I think of, I'm still an hour later, my mind's still in the Native American space I was in with Lost Sioux and Eugene. And as they say, when you enter the circle, you have to come with respect. We've got to go out there to the deniers and the apathetic with respect and explain our case. That's the work that needs to be done at this point. So in environmentalism, we say that we go from the techno-optimist to the anarcho-primitivist, from the optimist to the pessimist at this point. Those that think we can just tech our way straight through it, and those that think there's absolutely no hope at all deep in the doomer community, that we're going to end up like the Road Warrior. And that's where we're at. That's what we discuss.
So
if you think about it as a communication revolution, just a communications revolution, it does whittle it down much more simply, and it's much more understandable to try and get a hold of it. That's really what is on now. That's the main thrust from us, as it has been all along, is communicating. But it is really the main job is to communicate all of this out there, get people to get it, basically. Graphene, by the way.
So the next step, the next step, Ollie, is you have people like Dr. Gill in Maine and Dr. Mann, and they then consult psychological, scientific surveys on how to communicate.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
never get them to art school. I don't know. They don't. So many of them don't respect the artists, and then when the artists are not respected, they won't help us.
I think there's a meeting of minds slowly coming on now. I mean, I think there is.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree that the tech thing is over. I think there's a lot going on there, but the role for most of us in this space and out there is the communication thing. We have the skills to communicate as much as we know, as it were, and we can do that quite well. There's absolutely no problem about that.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's also another aspect to this, which is generational. So, and thank you about the graphene, but there's a generational issue, and one of that issue is that, and look, I'm in my 50s, so
Gen X.
So I basically, when I talk about this sort of stuff to other people, I basically say, my time is over. I need to get out of the way of the younger generation, but I do also recognize that we need to.
Well, let's. Why don't we try that? Get you out of the way of the younger generation. Hear what Wilson has to say. Why don't we do that? Wilson, what do you think? He's a millennial. Wilson, wake up, man. You're up.
I was gonna finish that with
go ahead.
We need to move out the way, but we can still be in a role of having a problem with my words today.
Moderation.
Partnership. Maybe.
Well, yeah, partnership, but I was thinking mentorship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gotcha.
We need a lot more mentorship, because what we've got is all the generations trying to fight each other, and it's really the people who are going to have to deal with it are the ones that we need to be in power, actually making the changes. And they can do that with wisdom if they have us as mentorship, because obviously we've been around it for a lot longer. So that's where I'm coming from.
Sorry about that, you guys. Can you hear me all right? My microphone's working all right? Yeah.
You sound good, Wilson.
Yeah, no, so I'm
Um,
listening to you guys from two places at once, and one of them is significantly behind the other. So you were asking for my thoughts on the situation.
well, our friend Frog, our new friend from Perth, Australia, said he's a Gen X, and his view is he's got to move out of the way for the younger generation. And as he was saying that, I thought, okay, let's put that into practice. Let's move out of the way for the younger generation, and that's you, Wilson. So that's what I was thinking.
Well, I mean, like my thoughts on the generational divide is like, okay, the way that I personally feel about it is, I believe that, it was something, it was a strategy designed by people in higher positions than me, right? Specifically to divide the generations and get them to attack each other so that people aren't focused on the real problems that are actually going on. I feel like American politics is a very, very good example of this because we really did have a moment in America where it was just like, boomers versus like everybody else. And they wanted to blame millennials and say that we're all so lazy and we were the reasons why America was going downhill and blah blah blah, connections to woke America, stuff like that, right? That's what I feel is really happening when it comes to the generational divide, is that it's not really like the people that can't get along. It's that people are convincing other people that we're just too different and we're just too far apart and we're just never going to get along. I think that that's absolutely BS, right? I'm 35 years old right now. I love hanging and talking with you, Alex. That's none of that is an actual problem, but I feel like in the news and the media it's been designed to be a problem. And so we have to figure out a way in order to fix that and to unite the generations, reunite the generations again. We have to figure out ways to connect with old people, connect with children, connect with young adults, and like, so that's actually something that I feel we should be considering it and taking charge of, because we can't let the generations get divided as much as it is right now. We can't sit here and all be separated and think that when we get old, all we're going to be doing is hanging out with old people, right? That's how families break apart. So it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really it's really about patching up a lot of this destruction that has been caused by people looking to take advantage of of people who are too busy fighting amongst each other.
Yeah, so it's exactly what I was just saying. It's the older generations need to move out of the way, but mentor the up and coming generations, because then both or all of those generations have something to offer on every scale of the societal structure.
Yeah, when say you've been in control of something for a long time, right? It can be very hard to relinquish that control, right? I don't think necessarily that the older generation has to move out of the way, but I think they have to learn how to trust the insights and the aspirations of younger people. I know that there's a lot of like disagreements, especially when it comes to traditional tradition versus like what would they call it, like inspiration or something, right? um but I think that it's more about moving out of the way and letting people take over, and more about learning to trust the decisions of the younger folk and allow them to make the mistakes that they need to in order to grow, in order to learn and grow. When you're a parent, that's usually what you would do, right? You just let your kid make mistakes and they learn from that, and you're there to help them and support them and encourage them to keep going. That's what I think we should be doing, instead of trying to demand that when you take the reins that you have to steer the cart in a certain specific way. And I think that's something that's happening, is like, they want some people want things to be a certain specific way that like follows traditional values, or accomplishes some kind of goal. And other people are just like, well, you know what, we're younger. We want to approach this from a different light. Maybe we have different values that we'd like to focus on. And it's something that it's like, oh, just because you're a younger person, just because you've had a lot more freedoms than I have. I think that I don't think that like you should be, say, punished for making those decisions, and breaking the mold, really. I think that that's just where it's at, because we still have a lot of issues with stuff like, LGBT communities and stuff like that. Not everybody appreciates them, especially in the older generations, where there's a lot of people who like begrudgingly accepts certain other people, right? Especially in the LGBT community, is that there's a lot of people that on the surface accepts them, but there's a lot of people out there that resent them at the same time, right? And we need to be moving away from that, I think. I think it's one of those things of like, oh, okay, well, we have gays, right? And obviously God didn't come and destroy the world because of it, so, right, it should be something where a lot of people should be moving away from, thinking of punishing those people because of that, like, mentality. Here in America, right, we have like a whole political thing where people are against what they call the woke generation, and woke ways of thinking, where it's really just people who grew up with bullying and are just tired of living in a society that rewards bullies and punishes victims.
Got a couple of comments. Wilson, first off, the haters out there, we're going to lose those guys by attrition. Eventually, they're going to die. They're going to go away. We can push them toward it, but eventually, they're going to croak, and they're not going to be an influence anymore. And all their wealth will, fall to younger generations, whatever you want to call them. The other thing I want to note here, by the way, cyberspace, we have a lot of the same stuff. We just took different paths to get where we're going. When I was in the military, I used to burn through 320 rolls of Ektachrome every 3 months. So photography, I get it. And regarding my education, uh, 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 I had the opportunity long ago to join Hofstadter at Hofstadter's group, and declined. Interestingly enough, I can go into why, but I won't bore the room. One of the things to remember here, and this is a generality, people are their most creative between the ages of 25 and 40. I have leveraged that in several businesses. I get an idea about to do something, and then I'll go find younger individuals, knowing that they are more creative, and literally just say, I've got a problem. We need to solve this problem, figure it out, and come back to me on it. And I can't tell you, I have in my mind how I would do it. And these younger folk come back, and I am just blown away by the brilliant, absolutely brilliant solutions. And I think that's, I don't want to put words in Frog's mouth, but I think that's the kind of mentorship he might be talking about, where you there. And this is something. This is a trait that I learned in the military: is delegation of authority. You know, if you want to get something done and you want to find a great solution for it, you delegate the authority. But you have to trust. You have to internally develop the trust to trust the people that are working for you or are going to actually do the job. And if you can get over that, I know how to do it. You're going to do it my way, shit. And just kick back and go, here, run with it. The solutions are just absolutely amazing that they come back with. Yep.
And not just one set of people. I mean, because we know that indigenous people have their own way of doing it, and that was one of the things with cybernetics, is that you don't have to always use technology. You can use human power or natural resources to do the same thing in a different way, which is going to be more effective and more reliable. And so that comes back to the same thing with environmentalism. If you're living in a desert and you're trying to track a satellite, you don't want to be powering it necessarily with electricity. You can get the local natives to turn it round to a clock face setting and get access to your satellite. I mean,
Frog there, right? The exact language. You can get the local natives to turn it around. I know you mean well.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I know. I realize that's any community person.
You're not a wordsmith. You haven't spent your life writing. I've spent my entire life around writers. I really want to goof off and have fun, play some frisbee, have a nice picnic out in the field with everybody, play some music, have a good time. That's kind of my goal in life, and it's not going well.
Regarding the environment, you're talking about native communities, and let's talk here in America. My God, the native community lived and integrated themselves into the environment for 20 or 30,000 years. I'm just gonna fucking say it. We had it down pat. We figured it out.
Up.
Yeah.
Koda. It was way longer than 20 to 30,000 years. Just to help you out.
I was being nice, man. I was being conservative and nice, but
I do apologize for my language.
Don't worry, Frog. Don't worry.
Don't worry about it, Frog. But that's an example. I mean, we had it figured out and thrived as civilizations. For longer than anyway. I'll just shut up because I'm about to tread into places I probably shouldn't and get emotional about it.
All we want to do is carry on and thrive.
I just want to point out to Pup's point, literally in the with the clear cutting of the Amazon forest, they have currently found cities that date carbon date in the first carbon dating to over 130,000 year old.
Wow.
So we've been on this continent a lot longer than most people understand or even know or willing to admit to.
True.
Just saying.
One thing that's interesting, when you clear cut that Amazon rainforest, the soil under the forest is very poor. They're cutting that forest mostly to grow crops and to raise cattle, and they end up with a really poor soil.
And Alex, I had to come over here because, well, the other Alex started showing their true nature.
I bet, man. I would have dumped them and blocked them almost immediately. I felt
I could only handle so much racism.
I hear you.
um,
Yeah,
in a day.
I understand. And I don't allow, I allow zero around here. And I make mistakes. I throw the good people out sometimes, but in this space,
What's up, Jim? I see your hand up. How you doing?
Hey, just backing up to the question of whether we have all the solutions or most of the solutions versus the complexity of solving the problems. Yeah, I think we have a lot of potential solutions, but there's so many areas where the complexity and difficulty is mind-boggling. I mean, we know that it would be very simple, a very simple path to reducing a lot of methane emissions would be if everybody in the U.S. Ate half as many burgers per week. That's easy to say, but it's a very, very difficult problem trying to do mass influence on people's lifestyle. And I don't know how to solve that one. I have some ideas of potential approaches, but on the subject of complexity, many people in court, including George Monbiot, have raised the question of how do we feed the world's population without wrecking the planet, and that problem is so complex and difficult. It's mind-boggling, and uh, so many of the advances that appeared to be central to restoring the health of soil. So far, I'm not seeing the empirical evidence that they're increasing crop yields. And I know this is a boring subject, but crop yields are so important. Increasing crop yields can let us free up land for rewilding, giving us more biodiversity, and and things relate back to trying to reduce the cutting down of the forests in South America, and I can't go over all the complex interactions, but I mean, you just saw me this past week summarizing 5 different things that you can do with crop residue, and I've read the research papers, and it's still completely ambiguous which path gets us to sequestering more carbon in the soil. So, what one thing? So, I'm just saying, don't deny complexity. You can't wish complexity away, and there is a field of expertise that's giving us various tools for confronting complexity, such as analysis of unintended consequences, and trying to, if you've got a solution, dig down and analyze what the unintended consequences are, and come up with ways of mitigating those unintended consequences. And experts in this then drill down another layer of, okay, those mitigations against the first level of unintended consequences, do they have unintended consequences? So it's mind-boggling, the complexity, but that's just one example of the tool sets that we have for confronting complexity. Thank you.
You know, you mentioned AI in regards to agriculture, Jim. I know from a thing I was watching yesterday, the Elders thing, where AI was a big feature of it for some reason, as was intergenerational, working together and so on. But they did talk. The guy that was the main AI scientist doing it, quite gentle spoken and a little bit not so great on the words. He basically was saying, you've got to have the AI for the agriculture. It's the one area where it's going to be really crucial. What are your thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And a few years ago, one example I learned about was the University of Florida. Their research into AI, they had developed an image recognition model to distinguish between beneficial nematodes and root feeder nematodes, and so that just run soil samples through image recognition, and voila, they can spot if they've got a root feeder blight happening. So that's just one example, but there's just tons of potential here.
Yeah, I want to point out again that Jim has been making his own yogurt since 1970. He's obviously a very kind man in this year of conversation.
So in which are we referring to? Sorry. I know I'm just getting into the conversation. So
that's okay.
Are we talking about like the current European colonial standard, or are we talking about like traditional practices of indigenous people around the world?
I think we're talking a little of both, this complexity thing that Jim's talking about. It's the new global
Jim?
Jim, yeah. Jim's a good guy. And he's got a PhD in physics. So that kind of classical thinking plus the indigenous knowledge. Jim is quite aware of that side in some respect.
Yeah, I'm definitely for an all of the above approach, and indigenous knowledge and cutting edge technology, everything in the arsenal to tackle these problems that are really.
Our pal Lost here had the other Alex who was very rude.
Part of the problem is currently in the system in which we are all forced to be stuck in and live in, they don't properly do annual burnings of of the underbrush and dead and fallen trees and stuff, where traditionally us indigenous people would literally haul that motherfucker, pardon my language, but haul that motherfucker out of the bush and chop it up and hand it out within the community. And what we couldn't use or needed was then, burnt respectfully and appropriately and carefully so that it wouldn't start huge ass fires. And I think that's very much the difference in comparatively, right? Whereas today, they don't do that and they just let it pile up, right? And then all of a sudden you have like, a freak storm or some idiot throws a lit cigarette or whatever, out the window or whatever. And next thing you know, you got a huge raging fire. And it takes at least a minimum of a decade to start rebuilding that area of regrowth, right? And I think that's part of the problem, right? Go ahead, Oliver. And
Lost. When did the Canadian government stop Native Americans from burning back stuff? that I know they stopped. They put in legislation that basically said, leave it alone, just leave it where it is. You've been running this, you've been looking after the forest for, as you say, 60,000 years. Now you're going to stop doing it. We want this stuff left. When did they actually put that into place? It was fairly recently, wasn't it?
Well, no, like they still did that. Like there was a few different things. So they brought in that law after they allowed us to be free from our reservations, our open air concentration camps.
Yep. Yeah.
So they were like, oh, well, wait a minute. Now that we've allowed you to step out of your concentration camps, now we got to bring in these laws to make sure that you don't do what you normally have always done.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah.
Well, just the fact that they moved us into concentration camps affected the way that forest management was being done. Let me digress just a minute back here. I support everything that Jim's doing. Okay, but and I look at it. This is a personal opinion, and I'll take ownership for it. Jim and the scientific community are trying to analyze and figure out what the native indigenous communities learned over tens of thousands of years. Let's be perfectly honest here. We didn't have, sophisticated computers and AI and blah, 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 blah to figure out how to integrate into the environment and survive and thrive in that environment. Okay. So there is some ingrained, literally by trial and error knowledge over, tens of thousands of years. And I really like the idea that the scientific community is going, okay, that fucking worked. Now, why does that fucking work? Why, when we tried to do this, didn't that fucking work? It's a beautiful, I'm all for the acquisition of knowledge, but you have to get back and realize that literally for tens of thousands of years, the indigenous populations, I don't give a fuck where you are on the planet, and I'm not going to apologize for my language. Yeah, wherever the fuck you were on the planet, they figured out how to integrate and thrive in those environments. Now, figuring out why they did is important. It's important because Jim's right. If we figured this out. Oh, well, let's go do this. Oh shit, that didn't work because that affects that, which affects that, and it's a drug interaction problem that is just so goddamn complicated that simple analysis, quote simple analysis of it just doesn't work. But this is a knowledge that indigenous people literally developed over long periods, exclusively by, well, shit, if we do that, this group of individuals. But the acquisition of knowledge is, absolutely important here. But we need to look at how these indigenous cultures were doing it and then concentrate on that. And Jim's right. How the fuck are we going to feed 10 billion people? I've got my doubts that that's going to happen. Anyway, I'll shut up again.
So, from an Australian perspective, that's happened here too. 60,000 years of understanding the as and when they are needed across the country by the particular groups caretaking. And as white men, colonial empires started to try and what they call oh, the word has gone from me again now.
Probably
Come up with those. So they've only just recently, in the last year or so, started to do those cool burnings again because they were stopped. But they've realized that they can't do it any other way. It's got to be done with people who understand, be able to see the structures of what's, that knowledge, but it has to be done from a perspective of understanding the whole as a system, not as just individual components. And that's the biggest problem we have across the globe is certainly have.
And complexity. I mean, very complicated ideas, simple ideas.
All right. Who's next? Who's next? Since Alex seems to be asleep.
Well, let me chime in here. I'll be next. So let me give you an example.
Wait a minute, Pop. Can Lost not hear?
Definitely joking.
always joking.
What am I joking about?
Who's going to be
Alex
next?
being asleep.
Alex being asleep.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, like, hey, as you start to get older, taking naps is definitely a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We hadn't slaughtered 30 million buffalo who were managing the Great Plains quite effectively. We could have those frickin' burgers. They'd be bison burgers, not beef burgers, but they'd be bison burgers. You know? And then we got a drought, and it's just, come on, guys, wake up. I like my goddamn burgers. I like my bison burgers.
Tradition are combined in some sort of successful way without it being, the usual fast money grab thing, then there is this wonderful cohesion between the two that can create combination of the two that may work very well. Certainly in agriculture, I can see it would be essential, but in other areas too, it might, for example, help people wake up a bit more and get it. I think the possibilities are there, and I don't think that it has to be one or the other or a fight between the two.
I think first we need to wrestle AI. out of the 1% rich and capitalism, and free it from that slave master. And then it might actually do what we actually really need it to do, right?
That I do get that. I love seeing all the hundreds go up when you said that.
Yeah.
That's great.
What a wonderful goddamn thing. I mean, you take 100,000 years worth of knowledge and train an AI the same way and say, okay, we want to do blah, blah, blah. And then you let the AI chew on it and go, no, that's not a fucking good idea. Or, yeah, that would work if we did blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is brilliant.
Brilliant. Good one. Write it down. Let's say hello to Letitia. Are you in Minnesota, Letitia? How are you?
I want to say,
I don't think
Loretta,
you can-
is that how you say your name, Loretta?
Letitia.
Letitia.
Letitia?
Yes,
Letitia.
hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm in Minnesota in my yard, and I was listening to you about AI, and I'm thinking AI is like a bucket word, and like somebody was saying, there are different kinds of use of AI, and some might be for good or like for modeling or single word, but it's like economy. There is an economy for survival, economy for entertainment, economy for. So maybe we will dig and distinguish the different AIs, because there are good AIs and that's kind of superfluous maybe AIs. And there is I was just browsing and there was an article. There were a couple of articles about digital twins in Economist end of August, and they were interesting. Else, news. We are in September. Everybody sees the days are getting shorter, and soon there will be the return to standard time in Minnesota. That will have sun again or light. It's carbon emissions on different aspects like heating or air conditioning or transportation. So a lot of things really and not having any. I mean, it's difficult to move out and uh,
and free it up for the rest of humanity. I think we can have tremendous amount of benefits from that, including helping us to, for our grandparents so that they can have a more comfortable living. That would really be a benefit to humanity, rather than literally
said before, the person who comes up with the AI CEO is going to make a lot of money.
I don't think
yeah,
Wall
because
Street.
like literally like this. They gave some one person a $28 million fucking signing bonus that gets given to them annually. Like, wow.
Andrea, I would.
Obviously, there's some.
Let Alex know I'm going to recycle, so that way maybe I can hear him.
I think he can hear you, but you can't hear him.
Okay.
But I want to go back to was not under